Okay, hello everyone and welcome back. So this is part 3 of our little experiment where we're looking at pre-exercise feeding and training adaptation. So if you've watched the other 2 parts, we first went off with the fasted training and then we went into the protein. This morning I had a nice little bit of carbohydrate, probably the most carbohydrate I've eaten in a long time, which was bread and jam. And then we're going to go through the same protocol again, which is our submaximal stages and the 3-minute intervals. 3 of them firstly clamped at quite a high intensity around that threshold, and then 3 of them all out again. So I guess with this study, the reason we've got these different stages where we have the submaximal intensity and then we also have the higher intensities, we're trying to get a good idea of different types of training. So you might have kind of your submaximal intensities, you have your typical clamped workouts, which might be say 8 by 4 minutes at like your threshold power, and then also we have those kind of maximal efforts. So we're trying to look at what's happening in the terms of physiology throughout all those different stages. What I will say though is it's quite interesting with this type of study, and we're not even really answering the question now, is that just because you can do more power, it doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a better training adaptation. And I guess with the things that Jeff's going to be doing for the rest of his PhD, we're actually going to be trying to answer those questions as well. So do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today, but then also what we're going to be doing after these to kind of move forward with the studies as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have this, like you said, today is divided into a few different parts so we can see some different things. So during the first section, the submaximal section, we can see differences between the different treatments, the protein, the fasted group, and the carbohydrate condition, with things like how much fat he's burning, his cycling economy, his effort, his heart rate, all these things. We can see basically what's happening during the submaximal portion. Then, like I said, we have the clamped intervals, so we can also see things like lactate, how hard he's working, his perceived exertion, his heart rate, and then we have those all-out intervals. So we see not only his total wattage across those open intervals, but also again how much he can push, how hard it felt, and things like that. And that sets us up for the training study we're going to do, with a couple training studies to see how do those factors that happen on the acute daily level translate over time, over several weeks, in terms of overall training adaptations.
Yeah, and in those studies we'll be getting into a bit more of the mechanistic physiology, where we'll be looking at things that we can actually look at a muscular level and look at some of the signals that are there that suggest great training adaptation, and that's a really important thing to consider as well. So last time through, more pain coming up. Let's crack into it. The threshold base 3 minutes, so we just done 3 by 3 minutes at 362 watts. So that was like the version of a clamped workout. Like, think about what that would mean in terms of training prescription, how many coaches would prescribe training. Now we're getting into the maximal one, so the best effort, 3 by 3 minutes, where the fun begins. These are pretty hard. So yeah, here we go. So that's the study done, job done there. Last 3 minutes were max. I think the last one was, my feeling is it was the best one. Felt pretty strong on that last one. My cadence was right up there, but we'll have to see what the results say. But obviously, of course, with the caveat, this is N of 1, and you know, I'm a little bit different to some people, so it'll be really interesting to see what the main results find. And we're getting how many people through, Jeff? We'll be 17-ish, or
eventually we'll be around there, yeah, 15 to 20, somewhere in there.
15 to 20 subjects. So obviously a study is only as powerful as the amount of subjects you have, so we will see what comes of that. Hi everyone, okay, test done. So we're now getting to the most exciting part, which is of course looking at the analysis. So Jeff's quickly whipped up a bit of the data from at least my study, my report and my data. So let's just first off looking at some of the remember, if we go through again what we did those four 5-minute stages at that kind of submaximal level when we were looking at fat oxidation and carbohydrate oxidation, and then we did the interval. So firstly we'll look at the submaximal trials. Basically what we saw was up here, you can see the green is the fasted, the blue is the protein, and the red is the carbohydrate. And you can see, bearing in mind I'm a fat adapted athlete, so my fat oxidation levels are higher than most. my fat oxidation was highest when fasted, and then a little bit lower with the protein, but not too much, and then lower again with the carbohydrate, pre-eating carbohydrate for breakfast. But what's quite interesting is that 0.7 is actually still quite a high number for most people, but I guess you have to look at within the individual, and there are some massive differences there. Is there anything you want to say on that, Jeff?
Yeah, that's it. I think what we'll find, well, we'll see what we find, but the differences between people with how much fat they're burning might be as big or bigger than the differences within the same person across the different treatments.
So I guess from this standpoint, if you are doing an endurance-based ride, from at least with me, it would suggest that having being fasted or a little bit of protein would be better than having carbohydrate from a fat oxidation perspective at least. And then obviously the next point is going into the high intensity interval training, the high intensity, those 3-minute reps. And as you can see here, what we have is the power in panel A, and you can see again the blue is the protein, the green is the fasted, and the red is the carbohydrate. And of course it's the same for the first 3 intervals because it was clamped, and then it basically, we saw very similar power outputs between fasted and protein, and between carbohydrates and protein, and a little bit lower when it came to the fasted state, but not too much. As we said before, when we started today's little clip, we said that adaptation is an interesting thing. Is doing higher numbers mean better training adaptation? That's something that we need to find out. But at least we know that we can do more work, a little bit more work, when we use protein or carbohydrate. But what's quite really interesting is that protein, in my instance, was actually better than carbohydrate. So
yeah. I mean, they're pretty close too. So we'll see how people overall fare.
Yeah, exactly. And they're and we're talking a few watts, right? It's like
that's a small difference.
A very small difference, but we are seeing very slight differences. So that's pretty much the real real breakdown and the real cold notes of it, so to speak. And we'll see what the rest of the study brings. So looking forward to seeing the data on a larger scale.